Okay, we are towards the end of the introducing paragraph of this mimer on AyinBase 11. I want to go back a little bit and point to certain subtleties and certain emphasis so that we're ready. Ready? Okay. Right. You're trying to get kind of a needle point on the principle of tzurah atzmis. Even though we're talking about oir, where oir is really a machudash. It doesn't go along with the etzem at all. So a certain point that the Rebbe makes, I don't want that we should miss them. So we'll go back a few lines. I'll start from 5 lines from the bottom, from the end of the start paragraph. Actually, five the broad of the wider lines. The line begins kuli. Even though that the oil, we said, is vein arect to the etzem, and it is not really coming from the etzem per se. It's not an automatic thing. There's an etzem, there's an oil. The etzem doesn't have oil. As we discussed this whole phenomenon, at the etzem there is not the whole element of gilui. The effect of its presence. There is no effect of its presence. There's just its presence. The komokim, yet still, going back to oil, because of the fact that it is tzurah harishayna shemin atzmus, the very first tzurah that comes from the atzmus. Yesh bozeh koyach ha'etzem. Therein, therefore, koyach ha'etzem, the koyach of the etzem. And yesterday we made the emphasis of koyach ha'etzem, although we didn't elaborate. We're not talking about the inyan of the etzem, we're talking about the koyach of the etzem. The inyan of the etzem is not transmittable. Etzem is only in etzem. It cannot be transmitted in oir. Koyach ha'etzem is something that the etzem provides. So we discussed koyach ha'etzem. Originally we spoke koyach ha'etzem in terms of indestructibility. Another element that is unique of etzem is the initiation. Everything in the world has to have something that initiates it, but for etzem. Etzem gives the initial impetus for everything. So I'm not going to go into elaboration. I think that the concept itself is quite clear if we reflect on it. As we're going to go on, we'll point this out again. Yes, koyach ha'etzem. Koyach ha'etzem means it can initiate out of nothing. Have the initial element. When you boil, and we explained in the previous mimer, Shezehu al derech bechinas machshava dagduma diak. Now this is al derech, this is similar to what's explained regarding machshava hagduma diak, the pristine machshava of Ak. Ak is Odom Kadmon. This is at the level of pristine machshava. So pristine means not created, initially original. So we explain that although we talk about Odom, the aspect of Odom, the principle of Odom is that it is a composite. Odom consists of 10 spheres, 10 koiches. Therefore, Machshava Hagduma Di'ak is Bechinas Odom. It has an element of Odom. Since it has the element of Odom, it is therefore Mechudosh. It is therefore something that is innovated, because in Etzem, in Kadmus, there is no composite element, composition element. There's the reality of Etzem and period. And here we say this Machshava Hagduma Di'ak. Odom Kadmon. Odom is not a Kadmon. How is Odom a Kadmon? Shenikra, it's a Mechudosh. It's something that came out as a novel presence from the Etzem. Shenikra Odom de Bria, and actually it's called Odom de Bria de Klolus, the Odom of the Madrege of Bria de Klolus. The principle of Klolus means, because there is Atzilus, Bria, tzurah, Asiya, in that structure that we are constantly referring to. This is a contained structure within a certain parameters, starting from Atzilus on down. The Klolus means that which represents the overall Gilui from Elokus, from Oyer. Not just a contained within a certain parameters. Odom de Bria de Klolus, that actually is way above Atzilus. Atzilus is called Asiya de Klolus, because that's where the spheres come into actual being. So even though this is called Odom de Bria de Klolus, yet still, Odom Horishan, being that this is Odom Horishan, the very first level of Odom, that came to be from Oirin Soy Boruhu. This Odom is from Oirin Soy. We explained in the previous Maimers several times the principle of Odom, the principle of 10 spheres, is, what do we need 10 spheres? What is the structure of 10 spheres? 10 spheres is the means by which the reality of Ein Sof can be revealed, can be present on the created level. That's why a human being is Odom. It's a very low level creature, so to speak, in the overall scheme of things. But nevertheless, it's a complete entity. And what way do we see that it's a complete entity? It really stands on its own completely. Like we explained many times. The human being is not even dependent on the earth upon which it treats. He's independent of everything. He's a real presence. This is the structure of 10. 10 means, because starting from Chokhmah, which initially brings down the godly reality itself on the conceptualist level, and everything is derived from there. And therefore, throughout the whole Metzius of Adam, all the way down to Asiya, there is that element of Chokhmah, that element that this is all part of the overall of the godly reality. So now, Adam, the Bria, the Klolos, this is Adam Horishon Shenizav Menasav. This is the first Adam that came to be from Menasav. What is the principle? This is the very first moment where the union of Ayin Soif has been translated in a structure. Adam Horishon. The Hainu, which means to say, which is Bechinas Machshava Harishena. This is the aspect of Machshava Harishena, the first thought. To elaborate on this, the Hainu Bechinas Machshava Harishena. The principle of Machshava as opposed to Seichel and Midas, for example. Machshava, we know, is a garment of the Nefesh. And what is the principle of a garment? It is how the Nefesh presents itself. This is not the etzem of the Nefesh. How the Nefesh presents itself. And in thought, as a matter of fact, yes, in thought we have a Seichel and Midas and so forth, but we don't have the pure Seichel. We have the Seichel as it is expressed in words, in Isis, in certain forms. This is the uniform of thought. Which means thought is that which is where the Seichel, for example, becomes a Metzius. Seichel normally is just the reality of the Nefesh. And here it becomes a Metzius. Machshava Harishena means the first moment where Ayin Soif was translated in a Metzius. And that's why it's called Adam, because a Metzius means it has the full complete composite of complete reality. The Hainu Bechinas Machshava Harishena. So being that this is Machshava Harishena, the Bechina of Machshava Harishena. The Bechina of Machshava Harishena, as we always point out, the word Bechina means to say, it's not the principle of the first thought. It qualifies as the first thought. Why is that the first thought? Because this is the thought that comes first if there is an intent to reveal. That Bechina's Machshava Harishena. It qualifies as the first thought. And this is what Adam Kadmon is. Hareza, therefore, this is B'Tselem Elikim. Therefore, this is B'Tselem Elikim, Shechoshav Kaviyochel Machshava Zu. Therefore, it is B'Tselem Elikim. Therefore, it has the element of Tselem Elikim, of the godly form. Why? Shechoshav Kaviyochel Machshava Zu. Because he is the one who thought this machshava. Who initiated this machshava? Atzmis. And this machshava was not a second thought. This was the first thought. Shechoshav Machshava Zu. Therefore, it means that this machshava is representative of the thinker. We said before, machshava is always to take seichel and put into thought. That thought that elaborates and reveals seichel is not the primary thought. This is thing I want to understand the seichel, so I put it in so I think about it. The seichel is the initiator, is that which motivates this thought. When we say that this is machshava shechoshev, that who thought that the initiator of this thought was in atzmus, so therefore that is actually representative of the atzm. And this is what we pointed out before, that the primary difference of the etzem versus oy versus everything else, and the koyach etzem is representative of that, is the principle of initiation. To give us a very simple, mundane illustration of the concept. In a company, you have a full structure. You have the, so to speak, the foot soldiers, the workers, the floor runners, and then you have people serving on different levels of management. Low-level management, middle management, top management. All of these, there are many. There are many middle-level managers. There are many top managers. There could be several vice presidents. There could even be several presidents by department. There's one chairman of the board. What does the chairman of the board represent? He represents the crowd. There is a company. Not there is that Ayin in the company. There is a company. That's the chair. He represents the existence of the company. And in the experience, people who are familiar with corporate structures know the chairman of the board, he gets paid connected all the others. Why? He hardly does anything. He attends a meeting once a month. But the whole company stands on his shoulders, on his presence. The initial element, not the development, but the initial element of everything in the company, it draws from the chairman of the board. This is the principle of initial. And the etzem, that is what etzem is. Etzem gives why does it have the quality of initial? Because it has a fundamental reality. Take it on a smaller scale, on our private scale. You have various skills and various interests, and you enjoy putting these interests and these skills to practice, and you get rewarded for it, and you get acknowledgement for it, all kinds of different things. What initiates all of these activities? Not even the fact that you're going to make money. Not even the fact that you'll be acknowledged and be recognized. The fact that you have a family, that you have a real presence in the world. This is what initiates it all. This is where your skills all of a sudden become valuable. Not because of the skills, but because they they give presence, they give strength and support to the family. That's the reality. If not for that, if everybody knows what he's working. If he didn't have to, would you do it? Or who would do that? There is an etzem element in everything. And this is the etzem. This is the shechosha machshava kaviyocha machshava zu. This is the etzem. This is, and therefore this machshava is representative, has the koyach of the etzem. In our moshel, which we can readily understand, a person goes to work, and as we said before, there are many aspects that he experiences in the work that are encouraging him to work and so forth. What really carries it throughout the entire process, where he can face difficulties and overcome them? It's not any of these things that make it enjoyable, make it worthwhile. That's one thing, the reality itself. Therefore, he thought of this thought. In other words, this thought is not representative of him. Not at all. He doesn't have any oil, any gil. But he initiated this. Therefore, this koyach of his initiation is contained in that oil, because that's what it stands for. This is the point what the Rebbe is saying over here. Shechosha machshava zu, v'yesh boi mibchinas oyenesav hakadmain l'chol hagdumim. Therefore, in this machshava there is mibchinas, of the aspect of oyenesav hakadmain l'chol hagdumim, of the kadmain, the pristine to all pristine, because he thought of it. Therefore, it has the koyach of that which is completely independent of anything. This is why it's called Odom Kadmon. I mean, Odom is not a Kadmon. But since that it was initiated from the Kadmon, therefore it has a Kadmon aspect. It's a phenomenal thought, principle, to say that there is such a thing as an Odom Kadmon. There's a reality in Odom, even though it's a creation. To translate it again at our level. We as human beings have numerous functional and activities and so and requirements. For one thing, we need garments. For that in the beginning, we need clothes. We have seichel midas. We have to eat. We have to sleep. We have to have company. The whole spread of human life. You would say this is all secondary. This is all by the way. It's not by the way. It's representative of the godly reality in the world. Because Odom is the initial thought. Yes, it's Odom Kadmon, but then it translates on Odom Lamata, but so many people say. Therefore, when you have 10 eating together, that forms a new reality. And you say the Shekhinah dwells there. How? What? Why? Because there are 10 individual dodos? That's the human reality. Because this human reality is representative of the Machshava Hakduma.
how does this carry through to? How does this koyach ha'etzem carry through to Adam lower than Adam Kadmon? Because lower Adam, it comes from Adam Kadmon, but therefore it's the tzurah of Adam Kadmon. It wasn't initiated from the other.
It's a reflection of the same initial thought. At the lower level, it's the same initial thought. That's what he says. That's Adam B'Tzalmeinu Kidmin saying. Adam here lamata. He's also called Tzalmeinu. Adam Kadmon is the initial, and it's just as wondrous over there. It said there's no tzurah atzmis, and yet it's called Tzalmeinu Kidmin saying. The same thing, the Adam here lamata, to the extent that this Adam here lamata, he brings the Shekhinah down here lamata, and when they're 10 eating together, automatically there's Shekhinah. It's a godly reality, because I said they're 10 eating together.
What was the point that you wanted to make about machshava? That if we understand machshava in a human being, it's lower than seichel. In other words, it's not primary. But yeah, the Rebbe, the term is.
Here's the thing about machshava. Seichel is something which is a direct derivative of the nefesh, of the oil again. Machshava is not a direct derivative of anything. Machshava is intended. Anything intended. What initiates that intent? Where does that intent come from? What initiates it? So we say, he initiates because he's interested to understand this seichel. So we pointed out, that's not an explanation of machshava. The principle that he's interested to understand the seichel goes higher than understanding the seichel. It is to bring out, in the sense, the essence of this truth.
So even in Adam Lamata, we see this inyan where machshava is really representative of the reality of the person.
Of the person.
So it's not that seichel is the initiator of the machshava. It's not the real initiator of the machshava. And it wouldn't be shy to say that there's seichel and maila. I mean, we say it, but it's not. In other words, there is no reflection of the. Down below, it's a reflection of the nefesh. Above, there's no shaykh to gilui. Everything has to be intentional.
The oil itself is intentional, and the seichel comes from the oil.
We're saying that machshava shows on a complete thing rather than seichel. If something stayed in seichel, it wouldn't come to completion.
That's right.
The machshava is actually the more representative of the wholeness of the reality in the seichel.
Right, but we said many times, an extension in essence, you're doing something extremely simple. It is not representative of your seichel. It's representative of your essence. That's the initiator of it. Yes, of course, you have to have kavanah, and you have to have everything engaged and so forth. But the initial thing is. Just as in our other motion, going to work There's an initial impetus for that. But then you have to bring skills along with it. You can't just go, I want to work. That won't produce anything. But what is the power behind it? That initial impetus. This is it for this morning. Have a great day.